Local vets marched to protest a crippling service loss. United Airlines pulls the plug on its Thunder Bay service. And new allegations of improper conduct by a Canadian surveillance agency.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Veteran centers in 8 locations across the country are closing their doors today.
And there were more public protests over the federal government's decision. The Conservatives insist the services those centers offered will still be provided to veterans, but some former soldiers are worried it won't be the same.
My battle scars.
The shrapnel still in his hand is the least of Glenn Kirkland's injuries.
So this one here is the sacrifice medal.
5 years ago in Afghanistan, he survived critical injuries in a Taliban rocket attack that 3 fellow soldiers did not.
I'm going to be tied in with Veterans Affairs for the rest of my life.
Like veterans across the country, he worries government cuts will mean fewer services he counts on.
It's great to be able to have a face-to-face with someone, because a lot of the information isn't online or it's hard to access.
The Veteran Affairs office in this building is one of 8 shutting down across the country today. Many of the veterans that use them call it a betrayal, while the government says there are simply more efficient ways to offer the same services.
We stand among you today. We stand as veterans.
It's become very political, with largely union-supported protests across the country today. While jobs are being lost, the government says veterans will still be supported through 600 Service Canada centers or online.
People across Canada don't all have access to Veterans Affairs Canada office.
The Veterans Ombudsman says that's already the reality for thousands of vets and points to the closure of an office in BC last year.
We haven't heard to date any, we haven't seen any evidence of people that were, that were negatively affected by the closure to date.
Right now, there's just not much benefit of the doubt. Not from the veterans on the streets today.
Where are these case managers going to be located?
Nor the ones that confronted the Veterans Affairs Minister earlier this week.
You bushwhacked us. Hogwash.
And not from Kirkland, the new veteran this is supposed to better serve.
I'm 5th generation Canadian soldier, and I'm glad that my grandpa's not around to see what's going on now.
Cuts he feels are nothing short of a government turning its back. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Brandon, Manitoba.
Well, the local Veterans Affairs office was among those that closed its doors for good this afternoon. Before it did, though, area veterans and supporters held a memorial outside the office to mourn the loss of services. Rachel El Soufi was there.
Who are upset with the closure of the Veterans Affairs office? Can I hear you?
Local veterans and supporters made their way from Branch 5 Legion on Van Norman Street, braving the cold weather to march to the Veterans Affairs Regional Office and pay their last respects. They say the closure means veterans will no longer receive face-to-face service in Thunder Bay. New options for service include contacting the Service Canada office or using mobile phone apps or the internet, which for some older veterans feels like an impossible task.
If they think that these fellows 89 and 93 are up are going to be the best guys on computers, that's wrong.
It was a well-attended memorial service, and there were many veterans there to voice their opinions opposing the federal government's decision. A small contingent visited the employees at the office one last time and placed a wreath on the floor there. Afghanistan war veteran Robin Rickards explains what he thinks the real tragedy behind this closure is.
If the government's willing to balance the books on the backs of veterans who fought for their country, been wounded, and require the services that are given out or that are handled by Veterans Affairs, who won't they balance the books on the back of?
As of 4:30 Friday, the nearest veterans office will be located in either Winnipeg or North Bay, which some local veterans say is shameful.
This is what I think of the Conservative government. A government can treat the veterans that fought for their jobs right today, their job, not mine, their jobs, and to sit there and say, goodbye, Joe. And that really hurts us because those jobs, if we didn't do our job on whether it was the front, the air, or on land or sea, they wouldn't have had a job.
This might be the end of the Veteran Affairs Office here in Thunder Bay, but the fight to restore the service will not come to a close. Their next step will be organizing a petition drive. Rochelle Sufi, TBT News.
The Northwest Region OPP say they're continuing to investigate a frightening highway incident that was caught on video and is now spreading on social media. The dashboard camera video shows a close call between two transports, and police are looking for the offending driver.
What the hell are you doing? No! No! No!
The transport traveling on Highway 11 north of Nipigon ran into the guardrail when an oncoming transport attempted to pass a snowplow. OPP Staff Sergeant Ken Manty says the January 4th incident was reported to police after the other transport failed to remain at the scene. Manty says this video is admissible as evidence and the footage is being enhanced to try to make out a license plate number.
I can't comment on this specific investigation because there's still lots to do and I don't know all the factors involved in this investigation but just from the video viewpoint, depending on what happened, we could go, there's a range of charges from criminal code, dangerous driving, to under the HGA, careless, or at minimum an unsafe pass. But on this specific investigation, it's too early to determine what exactly charge we would lay.
The OPP received numerous complaints about dangerous passes on area highways. Manty is asking anyone with information about this incident to contact Nipigon OPP.
Ontario's Transportation Minister acknowledges that some highways haven't been properly snowplowed or cleared this winter. Minister Glenn Murray issued the statement after the MTO imposed financial penalties against all of its private highway maintenance contractors this winter. That includes 3 companies here in northwestern Ontario. The ministry hasn't disclosed the amount of those fines. Murray says he takes the safety of Ontario's highways very seriously and that they'll take stronger action if significant improvements aren't made. The private contractors added 50 more plows to their fleets this winter. Murray insists the MTO has taken action whenever winter maintenance standards haven't been met, but he encourages all drivers to contact the ministry by email with any concerns about the amount of snow plowing, salting, or sanding on the highways.
The Winter Roads Network in Northern Ontario has officially opened. The almost 3,200 kilometres of roads help to connect 28 remote communities to the permanent provincial highway system. This allows for the transportation of much-needed goods to these communities, as well as easier access to health care. Provincial officials say cold weather in December and January have led to an earlier than usual opening of the Ice Road network. They will remain in service until the spring thaw.
United Airlines has announced it's putting an end to its passenger service between Thunder Bay and Chicago. The once-a-day flights began on February 14th of last year. According to officials at the Thunder Bay International Airport, United decided that moving the flight to another location would bring in a higher profit. Manager of Business Development Ed Schmidtke says this is all part of the give and take of the airline industry.
It's always a disappointment when anybody pulls service out of your community. You want to make sure your community has lots of options and lots of connectivity. But at the same time, with the increasing connectivity that Air Canada is aligning with strategic partners in Toronto, with the extra Encore, with the incremental additions of service by Porter into the U.S. Eastern Seaboard, we're still very well connected into the United States.
The last flights will run on April 24th. City Tourism Manager Paul Pepe says he's disappointed the Chicago flights have been canceled and wishes more regional and visiting travelers had made use of the flight. United hasn't provided statistics on how many passengers traveled the Thunder Bay to Chicago route.
A forestry company that owed tens of millions of dollars to taxpayers is off the hook. Buchanan Forest Products, through a number of different company names, was in debt to the province for $29 million in stumpage fees. But officials with the Ministry of Natural Resources confirm the money will never be collected. At one time, Buchanan owned and operated 8 mills across northwestern Ontario. In 2009, all of them had been idled and staff let go when the various companies went into receivership. The forestry licenses held by different Buchanan companies were terminated between 2011 and 2013. Officials at the M&R say the government did not forgive the $29 million owed. But the debt was, quote, wound down at different times as a result of the outcomes of individual bankruptcies. All uncollectible debt owned by the bankrupt Buchanan companies was written in late June of last year. The $29 million is in addition to a $24 million government loan to Buchanan that was forgiven. That money was used to restart Terrace Bay Pulp.
Well, Terrace Bay and AV Birla have reached an agreement on the assessed value of the town's local mill. Council in Terrace Bay voted on a deal this afternoon that will result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue, But officials insist it was the safest way to move forward in order to keep the town financially stable. The mill's assessed value for 2013 was $23 million. A.V. Birla filed an appeal with the Assessment Review Board in an attempt to reduce the value to just $2 million. Instead, however, the two sides negotiated and have settled on a value of $15.4 million. The deal will cost the town $530,000 in annual tax revenue. Terrace Bay will also have to repay A.V. Birla $600,000. The town council will seek financial assistance from the province, and a draft plan regarding how to handle the lost revenue will be presented at an upcoming public meeting. Former Mayor Mike King stepped down late last year in opposition to the negotiations. He wanted to fight the reassessment.
The Mattawa First Nations Ring of Fire negotiator says progress is being made in talks with the province. According to Bob Ray, good discussions are underway to create a framework so private companies know what the rules of the game are. Ray was a guest speaker at the Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting last night. Dennis Ward reports.
Infrastructure, the environmental assessment process, and improving living conditions on reserves are all on the table, says Bob Ray. The Mattawa Tribal Council negotiator is in constant contact with provincial Ring of Fire negotiator Frank Yakabuchi, and he says talks have come a long way. Ray says the mining companies are talking about roads primarily for themselves. He contends the interests of the communities have to be taken into account from the start and not as an afterthought.
You've got 5 fly-in communities that have no access, that have no infrastructure. So it's not just about the mining infrastructure, it's about the infrastructure for the communities. And that's true for broadband, it's true for hydro, it's true for everything. I mean, we want to make sure that the interests and concerns of the community are taken seriously.
Although fingers have been pointed in many directions over the stalled development in the Ring of Fire, Ray told the crowd at the Chamber AGM progress is dependent on market conditions. The meeting also included the formal swearing-in of 2014 Board Chair Uli Walther. He takes on the role as the Chamber reaches 1,100 members, and during a public dispute with Council and administration over a recently released report on the city's finances. Walther maintains the city and the Chamber have a good relationship, and that will continue.
We're running into these issues at the moment. Sometimes it happens. I am confident that we will come out at the end with a good result.
Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Ontario's provincial police have charged one person in connection with the fatal mall collapse in Elliott Lake in 2012. 64-year-old Robert Wood, an engineer who inspected the Algo Centre Mall, faces 2 counts of criminal negligence causing death. He also faces 1 count of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. Wood declared the mall structurally sound just weeks before the roof caved in. 2 women died in the tragedy. An inquiry wrapped up last October, but police are still conducting their own criminal investigation.
Well, excitement is mounting for the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Canada is sending around 220 athletes to the Games, which start next weekend. In March, Canada will be sending another 50 athletes for the Paralympics. And a Thunder Bay man will be there as the Alpine Ski Director. Phil Darlington has more.
Marcus Walser is the head of the technical control and officiating for the International Paralympic Committee for Alpine Skiing. He has worked with the Paralympics for the past 10 years, including the 2010 Games in Vancouver. On February 25th, he will be flying to Sochi, Russia to be the race director for alpine skiing events. For Walser, he feels this year the Paralympics will be very successful.
We're very positive going into this year, where our World Cup circuit is presently continuing in Europe. We just finished a swing through North America. The athletes are very excited. Everybody's skiing very well, and things are going well.
Walser says that the interest in the Paralympics has grown immensely. He cites the 2012 London event where the athletes' facility had every seat filled all day, every day for the Paralympics.
People enjoy watching it. Part of it is once they get there, they understand that these are elite athletes. Yes, they have a disability, but they can perform, and they have an immense joy in performing. I get people telling me all the time it is a really fun event to be around, and they're amazed by the athletic performance.
Walser says that because he's working for the International Committee, he cannot cheer for Canadian athletes. But because he has worked for so long with so many of the athletes, friendships have been formed. The Paralympics begin on March 7th. Phil Darlington, TBT News.
Well, let's switch gears over to weather now. Kasia, we are on the eve of February now. Here's my prediction. It can't possibly be any colder, and nor will we see as much snow as we did in January. Am I right?
Well, we won't be seeing as much snow. Next week should be a good indication of what we do expect, which is clear skies but cold temperatures. We can expect daytime highs ranging between -12 to -18. Meanwhile, the average is -7, so we can expect to stay below seasonal. Giving us a daytime high of -14 today, mainly sunny skies throughout the day. We started off at -36 this morning with the wind chill, and as the day progressed, it did get warmer, being the warmest closest to this hour right now with the wind chill of -22, and pretty light winds coming from the southwest, gusting at 17 kilometers an hour. Over the past 24 hours, you can see we didn't get much precipitation in our region, more so in southern Ontario and to the east of us. But where we do have snow right now is around Sioux Lookout and further up north. They got temperatures about -20 in Big Trout Lake, and -19 in Pickle Lake. Closer to the border there, Kenora and Dryden's had cloudy skies throughout the day and sitting at -20 and 18. And further south, sunny skies for Fort Frances region. And over in Greenstone and Sault Ste. Marie, they got just a mix of cloud, and they actually had some snow earlier today, so it's tapered off right now, and Greenstone's at -19 and Sault Ste. Marie at -12. Heading out tonight, we got some pretty good conditions, nothing out of the or nothing too bad. Partly cloudy, and after midnight, the cloudiness should increase with a low of -23. The wind chill is going to feel more like -33, and pretty light winds coming in from the west-southwest. Looking into tomorrow, the main snowstorm is going to hit southern Ontario, and it's going to taper into our region, so we're going to get some light flurries tomorrow, and again, some pretty cold temperatures ranging around -18 tomorrow. But I'll have more details for you later on in the news hour.
Cold temperatures and more cold temperatures. Always the bearer of bad news, Kasia.
I know, it's depressing.
Well, there are new concerns regarding the privacy of citizens on Canadian soil. We'll tell you why right after the break.
They want to know if they walk into the airport, do they have to turn off their cellular phones and their laptops?
New revelations in a top-secret document from Edward Snowden reveal that CSEC, the Communications Security Establishment Canada, has tracked Canadians traveling through a major Canadian airport.
It has critics concerned about the privacy of citizens on Canadian soil. Julie Van Dusen reports.
It happened over a 2-week period. Thousands of travelers who connected to an airport's Wi-Fi service through their wireless devices were then tracked for days by CSEC.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
I'm kind of a little disturbed by it. I don't think that's right.
The government is defending CSEC.
CSEC has made it clear to CBC that there was nothing in the documents that had been obtained that showed that Canadians' communications were targeted, collected, or used, nor that travelers' movements were tracked.
But the documents reveal that metadata was collected. Metadata includes information like phone numbers and locations of calls, but not their content. CSEC, or CSE, admits it does gather metadata. In order to fulfill this key foreign intelligence role for the country, CSE is legally authorized to collect and analyze metadata. But security experts say that metadata is often revealing.
You can tell a lot more about people, their habits, their relationships, their friendships, even their political preferences, their associations, based on that type of metadata.
Opposition MPs say this is alarming.
Canadians want to know. They want to know if they walk into the airport, do they have to turn off their cellular phones and their laptops, just in case they get spied on by the Canadian government. This is shameful.
And will the minister initiate his own investigation into CSEC's activities to reassure Canadians?
The activities of CSEC are reviewed by an independent commissioner who has repeatedly indicated that CSEC respects the privacy and the laws of this country.
Critics say that's not enough.
Do we have the oversight structure to ensure privacy protection in this new context of cyber surveillance? We need to address that issue squarely.
Questions will be put to the head of CSEC, John Forster, on Monday. He was already scheduled to appear at a parliamentary committee to talk about security issues. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
The U.S. State Department has released a key report on the proposed Keystone XL pipeline. It's seen as a critical step in determining whether the project will move forward. The findings show oil from Canada's oil sands is 17% more greenhouse gas intensive than the average oil used in the United States. But the environmental impact study did not raise any major objections to the project. 8 U.S. agencies will now examine the results and send their observations to the Secretary of State. U.S. President Barack Obama would then decide whether or not to approve the pipeline. No final decision may not come for several months.
The government of Manitoba apologized today for failing to protect Phoenix Sinclair. The 5-year-old girl was murdered in 2005 by her mother and her mother's partner. She'd fallen through the cracks of the child welfare system. Katie Nicholson has the story.
It began with an admission. On behalf of the government of Manitoba, I'd like to begin by saying the child welfare system failed Phoenix Sinclair.
And an apology.
We deeply regret and are profoundly saddened by the loss of this child.
Phoenix Sinclair was apprehended by Child and Family Services at birth. She spent much of her short life bouncing around the child welfare system. Social workers lost track of her for months at a time before returning her to her mother's care. At the age of 5, after enduring months of torture, she was brutally beaten and left to die on this basement floor. Her mother and boyfriend convicted of her murder in 2008. The province ordered an inquiry into her death. After nearly a year of testimony from more than 100 witnesses, this report containing 62 recommendations. Among them, Child and Family Services do more to train social workers and create a professional college with mandatory enrollment. Most of the social workers involved in Sinclair's care weren't registered.
People assume that if they hear the word social worker, that it means that someone is regulated by this organization and that they do have a social work degree, but that's not the case.
The report also urges the Premier of Manitoba to raise the issue of Aboriginals in care at the next conference of premiers. In Manitoba, 80% of children in care are First Nations.
The Premier has already raised this with the current and incoming chairs, Premiers Wynne and Giz, both of whom are very supportive.
I feel a little less weight on us.
Kim Edwards was one of the little girl's former caregivers. She first called for this inquiry. Today, relief and fear of what may happen if the recommendations aren't followed.
There's going to be more phoenixes, or there may be more phoenixes. I know that there has been more phoenixes since 2006.
One big question remains: how will the province be able to afford to implement these 62 recommendations? It's already paid $14 million for the inquiry and has had to make cuts to CFS agencies. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There's just 1 week to go until the Olympic Winter Games in Sochi, Russia, and now some of the first Canadians hoping to bring home medals are touching down. But with security concerns looming, is the city ready to host the world? Nala Ayad reports from Sochi.
Nearly 7 years of preparation, and the world begins to descend on Sochi. A week before the opening ceremonies, and Sochi switches from construction zone to host. The international airport here, one big arrivals lounge today.
Hello. Hi. Give me your passport, please.
The first of thousands of athletes from 85 countries, including some of Canada's best hopes for medals. Figure skater Patrick Chan arrives with an early jump on trying for the gold in men's singles that eluded him last time. It would also be a Canadian first.
I'm not really like a deer in the headlights this time, so it's going to be much better, and I'll be able to control, my environment much better.
Also on the ground today, Canada's snowboarding team. With slopestyle making its Olympic debut, Mark McMorris is a possible medalist. Though he's still recovering from a fractured rib from Saturday's jarring fall, he'll be back on snow in 3 days.
It's the quick snaps that are still sore, and I don't know, I'm definitely going to be fighting through some pain, and it's day by day.
In exactly a week's time, the focus will shift to here, to the Olympic Park right on the Black Sea. It's just about ready to put on the big show, but just a few final touches left. It is a high-stakes moment for Russia, a mammoth project in a small city that's expected to come with a $50 billion bill and a world's worth of security-related headlines. The head of the IOC, though, who also arrived in Sochi today, says he, unlike many others, is confident the Games will be safe.
Everything is being done to secure these Games and to have the athletes and all the participants enjoying these Games in a safe and secure environment.
Far from security worries, this is a celebration of sport that's just getting underway. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Sochi.
Obviously, we're all hoping for the safety of
Yes.
all the athletes at the Olympics. Hopefully, come a week from now, we can just simply talk about the great sporting events.
Because it will be, for sure.
That would be nice. Should be a good one. Let's take a look at the activity on the markets today. In Toronto, the TSX was down 40 points to 13,694. The Dow fell 149 points to 15,698. And the Nasdaq slipped 19 points to 4103. The Canadian dollar ended the week up 1/4 cent at 89.78. Gold closed at $1,239, down $2, and oil was down 74 cents to $97.49 per barrel. Well, a busy weekend on the local sports scene, Randy. Over at the Fieldhouse, we've got both the men's and women's basketball teams in action tonight and tomorrow, and then over at the Gardens, the hockey team's on the ice.
Yeah, and you have the volleyball team on the road as well.
Yeah, they're on the road.
So you got basketball and hockey that you can pick from locally, and of course we'll have all the results for you. You can definitely tell it's Friday when we start talking about all the varsity teams.
Are you tired?
Not necessarily. Every point is crucial for the Lakehead Thunderwolves. They open a 2-game series with Ottawa tonight at 7:30 at the Gardens. Now, the GGs have fallen back a bit lately in the East, but they still have to be considered a dangerous team. They beat Western earlier in the season. They also pushed the Ryerson Rams to the brink in the first half. Those are two teams that respectively sit 1 point ahead and 1 point behind your Wolves in the West.
It's another high-level team. They are like Western and they are like Ryerson. I can tell by the clips. They got a lot of pace through the game. They're a quick team. They've slipped a little bit, I think, within the break. But again, we have to be on our toes. We're going to have to play a real good game to get our points. And we know, like we keep talking about after the break, and we know all these games are going to be like this. And it's just another one. And I think we fared so far pretty good in the break, and we have to continue to do so.
We just need to play our own game, stick to our hard work. We're getting guys back in the lineup here. Guys are getting healthy, and if everyone sticks to it, I think we should be okay.
Forward Ryan McGill will miss tonight's game, serving a 1-game suspension for boarding, but Captain Andrew Wilkins will suit up. The Thunder Bay North Stars visit Fort Francis tonight in SIJHL action. NHL tonight for the first time in almost 3 years. Vancouver visits Winnipeg. It's one of 5 games on the schedule. Last night in Toronto, Leaf Center, Nazem Kadri using the old smelling salts. I use them before I come to work every day. And his team would fall behind 2-0 to Florida. When they finally woke up, James Van Riemsdyk sets up the screen. It's Cody Franson wiring it in from the point. Mason Raymond would tie it, then former Flyer Van Riemsdyk would put the Leafs ahead to stay, gets a stick on it for his career-high 22nd goal this season. The Buds romp 6-3, and Boston Habs come out very strong, looking for their 5th straight win over the Bruins. Alexei Emelin gets a rare goal to start the scoring for Montreal. And then it's Max Pacioretty with the game winner. Nice solo effort here as he fights off a Bruin to slip in his 23rd. The Canadians easily win that one 4-1. Ottawa will come out firing on all cylinders at home against Tampa. Jason Spezza, showing lots of patience, eventually sets up Erik Karlsson at the side of the net. Sens take it 5-3. And finally, the Flames are riding a season-high 4-game winning streak, upsetting San Jose 4-1. Their captain, Mark Giordano, who you just saw, had the game winner, his 9th. On the Lakehead varsity front, it's must-win weekend for Lakehead's volleyball team as they head to Waterloo. A sweep over the Warriors would keep them in the playoff hunt as they try and catch Brock for the 4th and final playoff spot. For the Lady Wolves basketball team, they will be at the Fieldhouse to face McMaster. LU is 8-8. For the men, they'll be looking to upset the Marauders and stretch their winning streak to 3, but that's easier said than done, according to Ryan Bonazzo.
The Thunderwolves were simply too much for Brock, the OUA's worst defensive team last weekend. The 99 points scored by Lakehead against the Badgers on Saturday was a season high. This weekend's opponent, McMaster, has allowed the fewest points in the West Division. Coach Matt Erdman knows it's going to be tough sledding against the first-place club.
Those guys, a couple years ago, we said that they're going to be really good when they were on their first year. Now they're in their 3rd year. They got tons of experience. They played up here last year. We were down 15 going in a half last year and ended up winning, so I'm sure they're going to be a bit bitter. And I mean, they can score from all 5 spots on the floor.
Nonetheless, the Wolves can still use last weekend's performance as a building block, according to rookie guard Henry Tan.
I think it's very big for our team. Despite coming off 3 losses in a row, we wanted to play with energy, play with confidence, and then, I think that we did a really good job of putting them away in the second game.
But the Wolves haven't been able to put it together night in and night out. And they can't put teams away if they get behind early and are forced to play catch-up, as they have so often this season.
We're just trying to focus on, not getting too high and not getting too low when teams make runs and trying to play through that little bit of an inexperience that we do have. I mean, it's always some sort of learning curve, and this is part of our learning curve this year. I think we did a pretty good job on Friday of weathering the storm that they gave us in the second half, so hopefully there'll be a bit of a change.
We got to communicate. We got to, help each other out, both offense and defense. And, Mac is a very good team, and we got to give it our all this weekend.
Toronto Raptors hit the road, opening a 5-game road trip in Denver tonight. The Raps lead the Atlantic Division with a 24-21 record, and DeMar DeRozan, who's going to the All-Star game for her first time, remains a game-time decision with an ankle injury. In Tokyo last night, Canada going up against Japan in round 1 of the Davis Cup. They had to make do without their two best players, Milos Raonic and Vasek Pospisil, due to injuries. That put the pressure on Frank Danzovic and Peter Polansky in singles play. The 135th ranked Polansky in tough against Kai Nishikori, who was rated 18th in the world. And as expected, Japan's best player won it in straight sets. But the 29-year-old Danzovic of Niagara Falls won his match against Go Soeda, meaning the best-of-5 series is tied at 1 and will go, or resume at least, late tonight. A sprint prologue is now underway. It started at 6:30 to kick off the inaugural Tour de Camview at the Camview Ski Center. The event continues tomorrow with 3 classic cross-country ski races beginning at 11 o'clock. Then the freestyle skate on Sunday. Over at the Canada Games Complex, the Thunderbolts are hosting the Northwestern Ontario meet. Close to 200 swimmers from across our region are taking part. Here's Bolts coach Stu McLean.
The great thing about what's going on in the region right now is every team has got a kid that's at a certain level. You know, Kenora's got 7 or 8 really good national level kids. We've got 8 or 9. Fort Francis has got a strong contingent of kids that are going to be competing at the national level. The product coming out of the region right now is actually quite strong. It's always nice, especially with a facility like this, to be able to race in it. You know, it is really one of the best facilities in the country.
I love competing at home, especially at this meet, because we have so many younger kids that are on our team that compete in this meet, and it's just so good to be that leader that helps them through their first competition.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers shored up their weak secondary today as they got veteran Corey Banks from BC for Canadian receiver Kito Pobla. NFL news, the league seriously considering adding 2 teams to the playoffs. That's good news for Ryan's down-and-out Washington Redskins. One would be added in each conference. Eventually, maybe they'll add all teams will make the playoffs and your team will get in, Ryan. And Peyton Manning could go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever if he leads his Broncos by the Seahawks Sunday night in Super Bowl 48. How would Peyton describe his perfect quarterback? He had lots of fun answering that question.
I feel like I could probably describe the perfect quarterback. Take a little piece of everybody. Take John Elway's arm, Dan Marino's release, maybe Troy Aikman's drop back, Brett Favre's scrambling ability, Joe Montana's 2-minute poise, naturally my speed in there. So I think if you just, I could take a piece of everyone, of some of my favorite quarterbacks, and I could take, 30 traits from different guys and put them in that perfect quarterback. So that's kind of how I like to look at it. I don't have the lists. I know a lot of people have lists, and anytime, as John Elway once said, if you might be kind of in the conversation of someone talking about, some of their favorite quarterbacks, that's a nice compliment in itself.
You've been waiting all week. You want a prediction? I say Denver wins it 27-17. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Russell Wilson, Seattle's quarterback, was a student at the Peyton Manning football camp. So
I did know that.
Teacher beats the student.
So what was that again?
Denver wins.
You're going to write it down?
Well, yeah, because I'm going to
in invisible ink this time.
go the opposite way, because that's generally
well,
the
yeah.
rule, right?
If Sheffy says that it's going to happen, then you pretty much pick the opposite.
So I need to write that down.
So all the Seahawks fans are jumping up and down.
Yeah. You're always, I have to say, you're always ripping on Washington. They've had a rough couple decades, but, your Bengals weren't so hot for a long, long period of time as well.
This debate could go on forever. So let's just take a look what's happening on TV tonight.
I have more to say.
On Global, we have a lot of drama with your full viewing lineup. Here's Stella Talk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, starting at 8 on Bones, a kidnapped victim's remains are found in a park. Then at 9 on Hawaii Five-0, an escaped convict kidnaps Steve and Danny to prove his innocence. And at 10 on the documentary Obsessions, we look at man's devotion to his four-legged friend. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay at 8, Marketplace puts some sports performance products to the test. At 8:30, Rick learns the art of restoration at the AGO on the Rick Mercer Report. Then at 9, the Fifth Estate looks at the Chinese migrants who risked death for a passage to Canada. And at 11:35, George talks with the Right Honorable Jean Chrétien. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, for the last few days, Kasia, it's been fairly stable in our region. We haven't seen a lot of warnings. What's the other parts of the country looking like?
Well, the good news is there's only one special weather statement for Canada, and that's in southern Ontario. So bad news for them is they have a messy weekend ahead of them. But like you said, we did have good news for us today. We had mainly sunny skies throughout the whole day with pretty light winds coming from the southwest and a daytime high of about -14, with the wind chill felt more like -22. Looking across the country, over in Vancouver, they had some pretty wet conditions for them with +3, and Prince George -8 with cloudy skies. Over in Edmonton and Alberta, the two major cities got some sunny skies and sitting at -15 and -13. Looking over in Saskatchewan, about 10 degrees colder for them with a bit more cloud coverage than Alberta, and sitting right now at -22 and -23. For Winnipeg, a bit opposite conditions. They've got some light snow for both the major cities in the province with -20 and same temperature for Churchill. Southern Ontario, like I said, is where the messy conditions are. They've got a Colorado low heading for them, and right in front of that system, it's going to bring a lot of snow, so they're going to get heavy snow for them. As the temperatures increase, it's going to turn into rain, and then once that system leaves, it's going to turn that rain into ice. So they've got all three of the elements there, and it's not going to be good for them. But it could be a snow day for the kids on Monday, so there's the good news there. But temperature-wise right now, sitting at -3. in Toronto, -6 in Ottawa, and -11 in Quebec. And looking over at Atlantic Canada, just some cloud coverage for most of the major cities. Halifax is at -10, Charlottetown just a degree colder, Fredericton another 2 degrees colder, and St. John sitting at -8. Looking at the weather systems in our region, you can see throughout today we didn't have anything hitting us, but as tomorrow approaches, you can see that heavy precipitation is going to southern Ontario, and we're going to get a bit of that coming for us. We're going to get some light snow, but it should taper off by Sunday evening, so nothing really in our region then. And speaking of the region for tonight, it looks like there is snow for all across the board. Over in Kenora and Dryden, the cloudiness is going to continue for tonight, and the temperatures all seem to range in the -20s. Over in Big Trout Lake, closer to -30, and over in Greenstone, they should get about 1 to 2 centimeters overnight, and Sault Ste. Marie is going to have -17. Into tomorrow, looks like the precipitation is going to stick to the areas closest to Lake Superior. Greenstone is going to get just a bit of cloud coverage with -13, and Sault Lookout is going to get -16, same with Pickle Lake, and further south towards Fort Frances, they're going to get the precipitation for them. Heading out at this hour, it's pretty good conditions right now. A temperature of -16 with the wind chill feels more like -22, with some pretty light winds coming from the west-southwest at 14 kilometers an hour, and the wind chill of -22. For tonight, we're going to get a low of -23. We're going to get some cloudiness. It's going to increase after midnight. And again, some pretty light winds, just gusting up to 17 kilometers an hour. Looking at the extended forecast, it doesn't look like the conditions or the temperatures are going to change much. It's pretty consistent throughout the week. Tomorrow is when we're going to get those snow showers. Besides that, clear blue, sunny skies throughout the week, with highs ranging around -11, 12, and 13. And the low is going in the -20s. So this weekend might be good to head outside and enjoy the outdoors, but there's your weather forecast.
Well, are you still looking to make some Valentine's Day plans? If so, Brent Hawley has a suggestion for you. We'll hear all about it in tonight's edition of Front Row Center.
Well, hello, this is Front Row Center. I'm Brent Hawley, letting you know what's happening in the community of Thunder Bay. Once again, now, if you're thinking, okay, Valentine's Day, it's right around the corner. What am I going to do? Well, why not check out the Pooch Smooch? That's right, it's all happening over at the Prince Arthur. It's in support of local animals in need. It's a great night out. Bring your loved one and enjoy a great buffet. Of course, it's there featuring the Prince Arthur's famous prime rib buffet, along with seafood as well. Now, there's 2 different types of tickets. You can either get a gold ticket or a silver ticket, depending upon what you want to do. 2 different types of bands, same buffet though, $75 a ticket or $60. Now, if you're looking for those tickets, you can grab them either at the Prince Arthur or at East Coast Lobster. Now, the symposium's at 6 o'clock, the dinner is at 7, and the live music all gets underway at 9 o'clock. For Front Row Center, I'm Brent Hall.
Front Row Center is brought to you by Teleco. We hear you at Teleco, your TBT authorized dealer, 601 Central Avenue.
Randy recently got a kitten, and it's been pretty playful.
Yeah.
It's been fun to have a kitty around, right?
Oh, they're crazy.
What if that kitty was actually a puma?
Puma.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be that much fun, right? Well, we'll show you what having a puma in your house would look like. Stay with us. most people get a kick out of watching a frisky cat at play, unless it's big enough to tear your house apart. Now, this puma was captured on video by a homeowner in Chile. It's definitely not the family pet. Somehow, the mountain lion got into the house and went on a rampage. Luckily, no one was hurt, and animal services arrived on the scene and tranquilized the giant cat before taking it away. But that cat playing is a little bit more terrifying than a little kitten.
Yeah, sure. Randy, you thought your kitten was a terror.
Bit crazy, yeah?
Yeah, no.
Not anymore after seeing that video.
That's true. It's a whole other level right there. Well, recapping our top stories now, 8 Veterans Affairs offices across the country, including the one in Thunder Bay, closed their doors today. Now, Conservatives insist that services to veterans will not be affected, but a lot of former soldiers, they're not convinced.
And on the sports front, coming up tonight, following the news, Ryan's racing down to the Gardens. He'll have highlights of the Ottawa Gigi's going to up against your Thunder Wolves. Yeah, if he runs past your car, please don't hit him. He doesn't stop for stoplights. No. Also, over at the Fieldhouse, if you prefer basketball, both the men's and women's basketball teams are hosting McMaster. So lots going on tonight, sports-wise.
Those are important games for the women especially as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
And for weather, we can expect a pretty great weekend ahead of us. We've got some snow for tomorrow, about 1 to 2 centimeters, and a daytime high of about -11. And then similar temperatures on Sunday. And besides that, next week, all blue skies and a bit cold temperatures.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and have a great weekend. Thank you.